Hi there, this is Kerry Cassidy, Project Camelot, Whistleblower Radio, and I have a very special guest today. It is actually Friday morning. I am so not a morning person, but for him it's evening, so that's probably a good thing. All right, at the moment, his name is Ricardo Baretzky, and he's also known as Baron Baretzky, I believe, and I'm going to actually let him introduce himself because his CV is very, very long. And I'm not sure what exactly to say about him. He is a global security analyst, I can say that much. And we are going to be talking about an article that is on the front page of Camelot. So if you haven't read the article, you should go to the very front page of Camelot and click the article so that you can see what this is going to be about, at least partially. And the other thing is there are links there to his UFO sighting, etc. So we're going to be talking about both the Nazi Bell, the new information that's come out about the Nazi Bell, the various sort of confirmations and other explanations I've gotten from various parties, as well as Ricardo himself, who has commented on that story. And then we're going to be going into the UFO sighting as well that he had in South Africa a couple of weeks ago now that involved an exchange of gunfire or some kind of fire between a UFO and a Navy base there, or possibly a TR-3B, and we're going to talk about all of that. So, Ricardo, could you please go right ahead, introduce yourself, say hello to everyone, and let's go from here.
Thank you, Kerry, and first of all, thanks for having me on your show. It's nice and early, I believe. Just on my history at the present, I'm the president of the European Centre for Information Policy and Security. It's a non-partisan organization that focuses on behalf of corporations and governments to investigate certain entities or certain policymakers in order to draft white papers for certain use. Having said that, as you mentioned, we spend a lot of our time in South Africa, at least half the year. And it was a very interesting last 5 months in South Africa, an unpredicted and total turn of events, I must say. Particularly with the sighting that I had, which has been rather life-changing, as I've said before. But
okay, and thank you for that. Let me also, before we continue, at least just to cover your bio a bit more extensively, you have a background in intelligence, correct?
That's correct, yes.
And you've also got World News Tomorrow, which is a news site on the internet.
Yeah, World News Tomorrow, let me just say something a bit about World News Tomorrow. First of all, we're probably the only free media in the world, besides one of yourselves, I believe. but other than that, we focus on mainstream media that is really important to global entities. I happen to be one of the co-founders or owners, of the World News. And World News in itself is a separate entity which I serve on as a body and occasionally act as an editor. But we have several staff globally that facilitates World News. So it's a total independent organization. And we have, for the readers also and the listeners, we've recently added exclusively a page for UFO encounters. I don't know of any other official media platform as part of the International Federation for Journalism that's ever added a UFO page. And that might be something interesting for most of the people, because we feel it's necessary to bring the word on the street to the people. We need to bring the atmospherics and the word of the mouth to the people so that they have access to real information.
Okay, so with that in mind, now why don't we launch into the actual sighting that you had which is quite fascinating. And I will say for the people listening that were at Awake and Aware, this happened at least within 24 hours of the conference. I was announcing it briefly on stage. So those of you that have seen the recorded footage might have seen me talk briefly about it. At that time, we didn't have enough information to really go public too much with it. And it's really great to have Ricardo here to tell the story himself. So, like I said, there is a link on Project Camelot front page. If you scroll down, there's a link to the Veterans Today article that was, I believe, taken from World News Tomorrow. And I guess there's also a link to the World News Tomorrow, which will have a story on the Nazi Bell, which was written by me, as well as I believe you called it something about Star Wars. Star Wars was in the title.
That's correct. Having been intrigued by the Star Wars background, as a child, of course, that was the first thing that came to my mind, because, when you have such an experience, it's like right from a movie book. And it's rather very different from when you are in the investigative side or on the law enforcement side. And it was my only way to compare it, and the closest comparison, because it literally appeared to be something from beyond the sky. And it's not something easily explainable, and nor is it easy understandable. It's not. It's a whole process one has got to absorb, and I guess that will take some time.
Okay, so at this point, do you want to start from the beginning and talk about the actual occurrence, how it occurred, where you were when you first saw it, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, we've got one of our holiday houses in South Africa, and we are for the moment at the holiday house. And when I had heard this rapid firing. It's at first I wasn't sure whether it was firing or crackers, but the ground seems to have shaken in our building. Now, we're very high up on a mountain. We've got about 120-mile view on a very clear day. And we've got an average of 280-degree view. It's a very big view of all of Cape Province. So, and it was approximately 5:10 to 9. And I went outside, and there was this major flares. It was like flares at first, orange, green, red. Those was, and I have seen a yellow one, a blue one as well. And at first, it was like, I thought, you on the point of washing it off till there was rapid firing just after. And, when you have rapid firing, it gets your attention, particularly when you're so far high up and you can actually hear it so clear. And I called my wife and I said to her, come and see, and she came out and she saw this lights, and you could see very clearly there was rapid, not only the firing, but there was rapid live ammunition going in the air. Now I know from my experience that in any drill there's never live ammunition used, and subsequently that got my attention, and I went to my office and I got my camcorder, which is one of the latest camcorders, I must say. It's a professional AX10 with infrared capability and the 200 times zoom lens, so it's really one of the best on the market for professional use. And when I looked through it, I saw a complete different picture, and I realized that I was looking at maybe something that was in the sky. And subsequently, I put it on a tripod, and while it was running, I found a friend of mine in the U.S., which is a former FBI member, to document the present event. Now, what is really astonishing for me is that I never thought that I would have an experience where I see something in the sky that does not look from this earth. It's been a tremendous changing event and tremendous change of perception, both in my work and my personal life. It's extremely difficult to explain, your impressions at that point of moment.
Okay, well, at this moment, though, in terms of the logistics, so people can understand, your house is up on a cliff, right? And
that's correct.
You're looking over. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we're roughly about our house is roughly level with the close to the level of the top of Table Mountain. Now, Table Mountain is 3,000 feet high, right? So in a good morning when there is a cloud, the cloud is below our house, so we see no valley. We only see Table Mountain sticking out on the other side. So it gives you an indication of how high up we really are. The view is absolutely spectacular. It's probably one of the most exquisite views you have in all of South Africa.
Right, and their base is across about 40 miles. Did you say it was about 40 miles? Is that correct?
Yeah, approximately 40 miles is my guess, right across the bay on the other side in a small village called Simonstown. I've been on the base once before as a guest from the U.S. Government, so I know the base a little bit from visiting there. So it was pretty much, you can see the base not clear with your eyes, but through a good zoom lens you can see the base fairly clearly.
Okay, and this is an American base in South Africa?
No, this is South African base, but occasionally you see some foreign ships here, like American ships or British ships in the naval. It's a very well-known attraction point or stopping point for foreign visitors when it comes to the naval industry.
Okay, and just this, we're just setting the scene here so that people can sort of see this in their mind's eye. And at this point, you saw the lights of the UFO that was some distance away. I believe, if I recall, you said the UFO seemed extremely large. Well,
at first, I wasn't sure what I was seeing because when we put the zoom on, I tried to zoom to see what was they actually shooting at, and it wasn't very clear in the beginning till I noticed on the camera that there was a huge. It looked like to me like a huge either oval or a cigar-shaped thing that was hanging in the air with several lights, maybe 30 or 40 lights around it at wide distances, and they were pulsating, and it's a pulsating that caught my eye, and then I realized, well, okay, I was just going to keep it running onto the whole thing. Kerry, it's not like I was looking for something particular to see. I just, at the spur of the moment, realized something is going on, right? Because nobody were told about any naval drill in our area. Now, if they're going to use live ammunition, at least they would notify not only the naval base, but the entire region that is linked to the coastal area in the bay. In the bay. Now that didn't happen, so of course it got my attention. And zooming in at first, we didn't really pay much attention to where the shots were coming from. They were clear on the video that they were there, and we have a 60-minute video that indicates there was definitely some serious firing. Then when we analyzed the video later, we discovered there might be two objects in the whole arena. It's difficult for me to say, is it a UFO? Is it an airplane? It certainly didn't look something from this world. But it's difficult to say because it was nighttime. You're on a 200 times zoom lens. But one thing is absolutely certain, there was something over the sky. and it was definitely over the sea. Now, the bay is very, very large. We have about a 40 kilometer by 40 kilometer bay, which is one of the largest bays in all of Africa as a whole. And an ideal place where, in a clear night, you can see the sky, you can see the reflection of the moon on the water from as high we are. So it, if it was something else, if it was a plane or something that it should have moved, and it was standing still, and that really got my attention, and that was a turning point in what I think I've seen.
Okay, but let me just ask you if what it seemed to be, as I understood it, was a possible TR-3B or a later model, because the TR-3B at this point is actually older technology, but a triangle in essence was one of the craft, and the other craft was what you're calling a UFO that was, from what I understand, maybe I'm mistaken here and you can correct me, larger than the TR-3B or 3C, whatever you might call it.
Well, what we've done is we haven't access to our own NSA lab, which is really one of the top quality capability for analysis. So I immediately took the video for analysis in our own department, and to see what was really ongoing. And to our surprise, we saw a kind of triangular shaped item that was sort of tilted towards the sky, and it looked like the fire. There was two forms of firing. It looked like the one kind of firing was coming from this triangular shaped craft, and the other firing, you could see clearly there was blanks, and the base fired at the same time. Because the blanks, it doesn't continue. When you have live ammunition, you can see them traveling through the air. With blanks, you just have one flash and that's it. And that really, I must say, it has certainly shaken up my ability to view things in a different way. And of course, having done a bit of homework, it's a suspicion that it could be a TR-3B craft. It was very large, Kerry. I must add to you, it was very large. The triangular shaped object that was doing the firing seemed to be very, very large, maybe 1.5, 2 miles in the wingspan. Because to be that large on a photo across a 40-mile bay, it has to be really large to be visible on a zoom lens. And in the other
okay, at the one hand, you're talking about a triangular shape. On the other hand, you're talking about what you said was probably a cigar shape. So two different crafts.
Yeah, it appeared that the lights, the pulsating lights, was a kind of cigar-shaped thing. At first, I thought that we might have been catching some of the lights somewhere on the mountain or so, but in that particular area, there's almost no lights on the top of the mountain sides. And then there was this one particular pulsating light in the middle of nowhere in the sky that caught my attention. And that's when I started looking at that particular area. And these lights were clearly pulsating. They're so distinctive differently from a light from the city. And you could see very clear that it was on two ends of the cigar type of craft, or whatever one might call it. There was two main pulsating lights. It was clearly indicated it had a point and a front or a back and a back and a front. That led me to believe that it's a cigar shape. At first, I did thought it was a V shape, but I think it's not. It looks certainly like a cigar shape item. And yes, the interesting thing is, I was live with a friend of mine in the U.S. as the whole event was taking place. So they were taking notes on the side. And he's a former special FBI. He was in charge for the Special Bureau for all of Asia before He was originally employed by J.D. Hoover. He's got a tremendous record and a fantastic record in law enforcement. And straight after this event, I actually showed him the live video at the same time. And we have a clear documented situation of something that did took place. The question is, I'm not sure what it really was, but one thing is for certain, it seemed that a triangular object was shooting at something else. And that is definite.
Let me ask you, because I spoke to you about this earlier, and we discussed this idea, but my understanding of a TR-3B or a later model is that you would not be hearing firing in the traditional sense of that. They would be using, whether it's a particle beam weapon or a scalar weapon or something of that nature, if they're shooting at what is in other words, a UFO or something very advanced technology, because normal bullets or firing, this sort of thing, would not have any impact on another, craft. And so on the one hand, the sound of firing that is recorded and that you did hear had to also, so in other words, what it appears is that the base itself, somewhere down on the base, actual gun firing of some kind was taking place that you could hear. On the other hand, light flashes coming from maybe the TR-3B or C or whatever are something else entirely, more like, as I said, scalar weapon, some laser weapon of some kind.
Well, it's interesting things, Kerry. I wanted to first verify what was happening at the base. So the following, the first Monday, the following, because this happened on a Saturday evening, the Monday, I phoned up a few friends in the military and asked them if they know of anything happening at the base. So the feedback I got that there was nothing happening at the base, and I was rather surprised, So, and then a day and a half later, they say they turned around and said, "Well, okay, there was a Navy drill going on that was planned months in advance." But the most ironic of this whole thing is that weekend in particular was the Naval Festival, right? Which took place the night before. Now, the night before, it seems that there was a posting on one of the internet websites where someone claimed they've seen orange lights over the sea, 3 orange lights over the sea, if I understand correctly, in the proximity of the bay, right? And this was all after we began to look at the background of this possibility. And now the interesting and the most important part is they then came and said, well, there was a naval drill between 8 and 9, but I saw this between 9 and 10, and the shots began approximately 5 to 10 to 9, right? There's an hour difference between what they said they did the drill. Now, and the more important is they've never done a drill with live ammunition, and nor do they have presently the situation where they can actually exercise a live drill, right? And that has already been confirmed. The more I begin to look at this, the more I'm convinced that there was something suspicious and something really seriously going on.
Okay, but let's say if they were firing from the base, and we know that to some degree there was firing from the TR-3B or whatever you're going to call it. If the base was firing, would the people on the base be Americans that were doing the firing, or would this be the South African Navy?
Well, the Navy, first of all, the Navy does not have funds to waste at the moment. They do not have funds to run live drills at the moment. They're very short of funds to do that. And we're not talking, the amount of firing that we could hear from here was maybe a few hundred shots in the first 5 minutes. There was very aggressive firing. It is, however, possible that the the part of the firing sound came from the flares or from the blanks that were shot, because there is definitely clear flashes of blanks has been shot on the video. But it's very difficult to speculate. And one thing that we are sure is that it is clear in the video that whatever was shooting was already in the sky, because you can see the exit point of the firing, and it was definitely some kind of live ammunition. So I don't want to go into speculation and say something I haven't seen or haven't or don't understand. And doesn't make sense.
I understand, but we do know there was the sound of firing, and the sound of firing, as I said, it doesn't, again, look, I'm not an expert on the TR-3B or its later models, but I can certainly say, logically speaking, that the sound of firing, and, at this point we'll need somebody who is in the military, who actually is in black projects, to contact me and tell me if when a TR-3B or C or whatever it is fires, is there a sound? Because if there is not a sound, then you have to narrow it down to the Navy base and or ships in the harbor that could have also been firing.
That's a very strong possibility, but when you look at it, you can't keep. When you zoom in, you can't keep the video or the camera in the entire space. You've got to zoom in one area. So it's possible that I've eliminated some areas without paying attention. One thing is certain, that in a normal drill, and this is something interesting that popped up, is that when I began to do my own private investigation into this, the people, or there was rumors that they replied and said, well, they've only shot 15 shots. There's been hundreds of shots fired. There's no question about that, right? And I'm not the only witness has seen it. Apparently another witness came forward and posted an article, or not an article, a comment, who was present in and is a member of the naval base, who has also seen it, and apparently,
right. And I linked to his Facebook page. I'm not sure how to spell his name. Something like, or say his name. It's something like Rian, or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
How would you say it? Is it a South African name?
Yeah, from what I know, he's a South African gentleman. I've been unable to get hold of him or contact him in this regard. I've tried my utmost, and to my surprise, it's become impossible to get hold of him. But apparently, he has seen it as well. And according to his comment, which I can only say a comment, that there was some military activity going on, and the people were very concerned. So and when we found that, I have personally given a call to one of the military head department, and they were unaware that there was any military on the naval base. So that just raises suspicion. You have a drill supposed to take place, has been planned in months. First, it's been denied. Then you had the function the night before. You had a witness coming forward and say, well, we have seen 3 lights in that area hovering over the sky the night before. Then the time that the drill is supposed to be finished, the firing began. And it was very, very clear from our area. And really, Kerry, what really fascinates me is how is it possible that you have there's almost a population of almost 1 million people between the 2 coastal areas, right? And few claims that heard anything. Some have said, oh, we have heard some shots, but we thought it was a naval base doing their drill. But here's the thing, is in the 8 years I'm here, 6 months a year, I've never heard a drill taken place in the night. That's the first thing. It's never been done, right? So the coincidences, I've got a philosophy. There is no coincidence when you have too many coincidences. It becomes a routine. So it doesn't sound to me like a coincidence. I know what I've seen. I've recorded it on video. There's been multiple shots fired, and there's something happened.
Okay, so at this moment, in terms of that incident, just going into, because of who you are, I guess, I just want people to be aware, and of course it's gone on to Veterans Today, as you know, and I'm sure it's been posted around the internet as well, this sighting, although a lot of people, the footage itself doesn't depict, sort of do justice, let's say, to the story, to what really happened. So some people will be discounting it. But it is a very interesting incident because of the exchange of fire, or whatever you want to call that. And I actually do question whether what, as you call them, blanks were fired. I don't see any reason why blanks would be fired. What would be the logic behind that?
Well, I didn't notice that there was blanks till we looked at the video and could see flashes on each side from the base, coming from the base. So, it doesn't make sense. Why would someone fire blanks and there's another live ammunition in between? It just doesn't make sense. And the second thing is, you could see very clearly, when you have live ammunition shot and they hit something in the sky, they can do one of two things. It can either penetrate the object, or it can literally it will explode against the object, and you will see that flash when it explodes, right? And you can see very clear these flashes explode, right? Now, if you look at the base, and I'm struggling to understand why they would and what the logic behind that is, unless this was a possible occurrence long in advance, or it could have nothing to do with each other at all. It still remains speculation to a certain extent.
Okay, well, at this point, let me also say that who listen to my program and often they're aware that there is going to be an effort to create a scenario in which there is sort of a false alien invasion called Project Bluebeam. This is a possibility. Now, something like this would kind of fall into that arena, and everybody who participates, it doesn't necessarily mean that they know they're part of something that's being used in a certain way. Now, on the other hand, from our perspective, there's already been, a number of invasions of various races, but there may be one specifically upcoming that is actually a real so-called invasion. So we have lots of scenarios that one could kind of troubleshoot the idea of what's really going on here.
Absolutely, I think Kerry, I specialize in doing global threat analysis. My arena stretch very wide, but is mostly focused at protecting asset protection or state protection, and most of my advisory is either to governments or corporations. And if I look at this from my own experience, or partly objective, because it's literally impossible to be completely objective, and I'm sure the listeners can understand that. There's so many questions I have that is difficult to find answers for. The first thing that I think is, why so few have noticed it, and why so few have possibly seen it.
Well, yes. I mean, somebody's actually asking that question. We have a chat room that's going, and somebody's asking behind the scenes here, have there not been, it seems like a rather large area, haven't other people come forward hearing your story besides this naval officer who seems to have disappeared or chosen not to reply, possibly been told not to reply? It seems like inevitable that there would be others, and yet, are you saying that there have been no others?
Well, so far I could, I'm also limited to the amount of access of work I can do or tracing. But so far we know there was three possible witnesses besides myself. One who spotted the three lights hovering over the sea the night before, and then apparently there was two people from the naval base, but one, when we found we tried to go back to the comment they've made on the website, it was removed. There is many people says they've heard the shots even in Gordons Bay on the shops in the Gordons Bay area, Strand area, which is about 30 miles away. Has certainly heard some shots, but it's so difficult because nobody really pay attention, And what's the most interesting for me is that while I was filming this, there was neighbors having a party just around the corner from us, and I'm sure they must have seen these firing and the flares because they must have heard it, and they were just continuing their party. So obvious people is not bothered to what they see, even when they see it, and I think this is probably partly the problem, the reason for people paying attention is an issue of being aware, and certainly people here is certainly not aware.
Okay, someone, I don't know if this is true, but someone seems to be saying we've gone off the air. I don't know.
Well, we were down for about 10 seconds, Kerry. We're backed up. It was a network issue.
Oh, wow. Okay, very interesting.
It's okay. The show's being recorded, so we only lost about 10 seconds. We're back up.
I see. Which 10 seconds? But at any rate, so at this moment, what you're saying, just to summarize what you just said, nobody that you know of, because we've got, people with their cell phones, we've got people, all over the internet, we've got South Africans, this has gone on the news, this has gone around the world. Nobody's coming forward to say, oh, I saw it and this is what I saw type of thing.
Yes, no, there was one comment to the video made where someone posted a link to a video that they shot of the same thing from another angle, probably not far from us. But we have noticed that the video was removed yesterday.
Right, okay.
And that was rather astonishing.
Yeah, it was taken down off the internet instantly. You were about to show me that. That's incredible. So this is about a real lockdown on this information for all intents and purposes. And when there is a lockdown, then it's, at least in my mind, it becomes all the more important to get to the root of the situation. And I think that it lends some credence to what you're saying here. I've got a lot of people asking questions in the chat, and so at a certain point we are going to go to those questions. We are also going to talk about the Nazi Bell situation, the new information that came out on that. So I want to make sure to give us enough time to cover all these things, and we have exactly 2 hours. So and not anymore. So. Just in terms of the, somebody is asking, I don't know, they're calling them the prawn aliens from the movie District 9. Is somebody asking that? I don't know if they think that this is related to that. I guess they're kind of loosely asking if it's related to the movie. Do you think there's any? I mean, I don't know why you didn't see any beings, so how would you know, right?
No, I can only say what I've seen. I'm a firm believer of being absolutely correct, and if I make a mistake, I don't have a problem saying that, and I stick to what I've seen. And I've got a picture speaks 1,000 words. but a video of 60 minutes speaks 1,000 miles. It's much more. Whether it is any other connotation, I wouldn't be able to tell.
Sure. And someone here is asking something about Rendlesham as opposed to Kecksburg, and I think the thing is here, just so people understand, the Kecksburg incident is linked to the Nazi Bell. It is not linked to this sighting at all. So there's no relationship per se. It's just this happened to, there are two things going on. This particular witness was, because of his position as someone who analyzes intelligence, actually from a security standpoint, he was just somebody that I went to when I got this information about the Nazi Bell that just came in from another source, and I just asked his opinion of it. We went down a road quite far in regard to the possibilities there, and we will talk about that. So that's just to answer that person's questions, because I think they were perhaps getting those two incidents confused. I'm just trying to see if there's any other questions here. And I apologize if I missed your question. The chat goes by kind of quickly, and it's not so easy to find the questions. Okay, so from here, is there anything else you want to say? I would like to say that being somebody who is as seasoned as yourself, this particular sighting seems to have really rocked your world, and that's kind of funny. I think people will find that interesting. That as experienced as you are, and I know that you've had information even about, for example, things about Area 51, et cetera, you're not new to this sector by any stretch, but this particular incident has really changed your view, right?
Yeah, Kerry, I get a lot of requests for analyzing work, forensic work, analyzing to make sure that the data is correct, So you have to be objective from a legal standpoint and a law enforcement standpoint. You have to be objective as far as possible, and work with what is the proof of evidence. Right? And when you're confronted with a proof of evidence while you're actually in the scene, it changes your way of perception in a sense that you have in life experience rather than from viewing it. And if I did not had the camera at that time, I'm probably certain nobody would have believed me, even though I have a credible background. And I think that is vital for people who is in law enforcement and special investigations, particularly those of agencies. Do not dismiss a fact unless they've had an experience. They can't dismiss the experience of another, and I think this is key to understanding this particular phenomenon. That there is people who had experiences, and we can't ignore them, and they are life changing. And I think that people has real experiences, and I've had an experience that I can testify from.
Absolutely. And you were also, let me just say for the listeners' sake here, you've recently also been on Mike Harris's show, I believe, discussing this incident. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. This is the second time I've been asked. I have a philosophy when you've had a serious experience to talk about it. It is part of the process. These effects is long-lasting in anybody. I'm aware of that, and I certainly don't want to be victim to that.
Okay. And I did ask you if you felt you had missing time, and at the time you said you actually were on the phone sharing this incident with somebody else, and so that you were quite aware that you felt that you did not have missing time, correct?
No. It was more like watching a movie without sound. So it was tremendous silence, and your thoughts is really, in a space where you say, well, is your thoughts real? Is it real what you see? And what's the firing all about, and what's the whole fuss about?
Okay, well, at this point, we're actually trying to find out if we have more time. Let's just make the transition over to the Nazi Bell. situation, because that's an important sort of side note to this. So at this point, I got some information that there was possibly a second Nazi bell, and that I've written an article. It's on the front page of Camelot called "The Hunt for the Nazi Bell." And you were kind enough to also post it on World News Tomorrow, so it's on both sites at this time. I'm sure it's gone viral. At any rate, I put an update very late last night because I was able to get some word back from Clark McClelland, which it does seem to match up with his story regarding the Kecksburg incident, which originally I had thought didn't have much substance in terms of what he was talking about, and now it seems to fit. The pieces seem to fit quite well. And we can go into all that detail depending on how much time we have here. So I'm going to double check that because it looks like maybe there was a confusion over the scheduling. So again, what's happened here is, and you were kind enough to give me a comment, which I put in my article, basically about the possibility of this second Nazi bell, what the implications would be. So do you want to go into that?
Yes, absolutely. When I first learned about this, the Bell incident, or the German design Nazi Bell incident, as you know, in the information industry, you have to have factual information. Right? But more importantly, to my surprise, I believe this is absolutely accurate. There is a serious possibility that something like this could exist, and more importantly, the risk it poses on global scale. Now, I think that from an analyst point of view, and the threat that this possibility poses to the larger nations is rather extreme, and I would not be surprised if there is many officers looking into this possibility.
Okay, so at this moment, it looks like we might be able to go over. I can move this show to live stream if we need to. So I'm just waiting for the producer behind the scenes here to give me the go-ahead as to whether we've got the time or not. It looks like we probably will move to live stream towards the end of the next half hour, if not before. So just out of courtesy, because there seems to be a scheduling issue, and live stream works just as well. So it's not going to be a problem for this discussion. But in terms of the Nazi bell, you do have some background in knowing some things about the bell itself, right?
I can only say what I am at liberty to say in this particular respect, because I have to focus on being objective as much as possible to any opinion. What I do think is that there is a lot more to the story than has been publicly said. I think there's been a lot of information buried and almost certainly placed cross-border. I think it needs a very, very deep investigation, and it needs a proper investigation by professional law enforcement to make sure, because you have two ends of the stick here. And the one side is information that is most likely not been surfaced for several reasons, but as you know, there's always counter-operators in the world, and countermeasures has to be put in place to make sure that threats is properly analyzed and looked at. The key factor is Kerry, if this technology exists and gets into the wrong hands, this will certainly be issue. And here's the interesting thing is I don't know if you know, Kerry, after I've made my statement and you have posted your article on the web, within 6 hours there was an announcement made that Syria actually have chemical weapons. Right now, this is fundamentally important. Why the announcement today? I do not believe that there is any coincidence when it comes to the information world, the intelligence world, and the way things operate. It's all pre-calculated, and it's all linked to response and actions. And unless we can link this together, then valuable time will be lost in understanding what's really going on. I think there's a real threat out there, and certainly some countries is possibly been put under pressure to avoid this threat.
Okay, so at the moment, what I guess, just so people understand the links you're drawing, if you read my article, you'll see that there's a possibility that the last 10 years of war that has gone from country to country on the part of the U.S., in a sense, invading various countries in the Middle East, for example, and getting involved in wars, has something to do, possibly, with the search for the second bell, because that the technology contained within that second bell may be even more advanced than the first bell, first of all, and second of all, it could be change the balance of power on the planet. And so what we're talking about is that Syria, now there is a sort of a push to go into Syria. One of the things you have to do is you have to find evidence of nuclear weapons or chemical, biological weapons, this sort of thing, biowarfare weapons. And this is what seems to be happening. So what you are saying is that that this article that I wrote might have triggered this second announcement. And I'm not sure in terms of the timing, because it's possible that one would have to actually look on my site to see exactly the hour at which I write things in the middle of the night. And so you'd have to look at the timing and see when the story about Syria and the chemical weapons came out in terms of timing. But there could be a connection. In other words, the next place that they want to investigate and get complete access to search for the bell is possibly Syria. Is this what you're saying?
What I'm saying is that, it caught my attention that this announcement came within 6 hours after the release of your article. But if you do international global threat analysis, the first thing you do is you take a 24-hour mainstream access to information and you feed it into blocks of certain parts of the day. And what happens is when comments are made, there's a response to that comment to divert that comment somewhere else. It doesn't mean that it's correct what has been said on either side, or that there's definitely a link between Syria, but more than likely there is no coincidence of information traveling. And as you know, the net is today the key of information feeding. So I do think, as an objective analyst, that there's more towards the eye, or what the eye meet, and what really is publicly awareness. And there's certainly some major movement happening in the security side of which Syria poses to the rest of the world. And I think this is a strong probability that there's much more toward the risk or real risk factor than people might know.
Okay, and just there's a lot of aspects to this story. So at this moment, what I'm going to do is we're going to take a couple-minute break. We're going to move to live stream, and the URL is it's livestream.com/Project Camelot Live. And it's also been typed into the chat here. Also, I will also announce it on Facebook and tweet it. But we're just going to change locations here, but we will be right back.